Hello and welcome to BTVI. I am Shantanu Guare and you're watching the big story, the big news. Joining me in this special show on water is Parag Agarwal, founder and CMD Janjal, and K. Vijaya Laksmi. She's the Vice President of Development Alternatives Group, a very focused organization that works on water. But before we start this very stimulating discussion on something that is hovering on our head like the Damocles sword, we must hear what the Prime Minister Narendra Modi said. Hear him out.
पानी की कमी से देश के कई हिस्से हर साल प्रभावित होते हैं। आपको आश्चर्य होगा कि साल भर में वर्षा से जो पानी प्राप्त होता है, उसका केवल 8% हमारे देश में बचाया जाता है। सिर्फ 8%। अब समय आ गया है इस समस्या का समाधान निकाला जाए। जल की महत्ता को सर्वोपरि रखते हुए देश में नया जल शक्ति मंत्रालय बनाया गया है। पूरे देश में जल संकट से निपटने का कोई एक फॉर्मूला नहीं हो सकता है। इसके लिए देश के अलग-अलग हिस्सों में अलग-अलग तरीके से प्रयास किए जा रहे हैं, लेकिन सबका लक्ष्य एक ही है और वह है पानी बचाना, जल संरक्षण।
And in Delhi, the government launched the big show, the big Jal Shakti Abhiyan. And then our very able reporter, Chetan, went across and met the minister, Gajendra Shekhawat. Chetan asked him, how does he propose to handle this insurmountable crisis?
With this campaign going on, sir, what do you expect from the stakeholders and what do you think the government could do more to ensure water conservation, sir?
See, water conservation is the need of hour, and to sensitize each and every for this, for rational use of water and conservation of the rainwater which we get. And as per the data reflects that we are able to conserve only 25% of the water which is participated in the country. So let this number be increased with the Jan Andolan sort of thing.
Well, that's Chetan Bhutani, our star reporter, who got the minister exclusively for us and asked him what exactly the crisis was. So time now for the debate and basically to understand from two superb industry experts as to what exactly is the crisis. Parag Agarwal, you were right next to me. I'll go to Vijaya Laksmi later. 75% of the water going down the drain and we have still not woken up. Now, when will we woke up and what's going to happen now?
So I think the good news is that we've woken up. I think the very fact that the awareness, the realization has set in that there is 75% actually going down the drain or being wasted or not being stored suitably is a good start. Having said that, there is a huge amount of distance that is yet to, the journey is yet to commence. We've just woken up to commence the journey, and this is a good start for sure.
But you're saying you have woken up to commence the journey, and still that's a good start?
It is a good start to realize.
You're being too optimistic.
Not being optimistic. I mean, simply realizing that, at least we have a proactive government that is actually now standing up and saying that, okay, water needs to be conserved, but having, there is no single strategy is what I hope this understanding is prevalent at their end. There is no single strategy to do it. It needs a multi-pronged approach, a multilateral approach, and several issues need to be addressed at the same time. I personally, for one, believe, and I've always said, that if there is no water in a particular region, making water available may not be a binding or an everlasting solution. It's management, it's treatment, it's handling, it's delivery, people's conscience, social awareness, everything has to fall in line and work in tandem to be able to make that water available over a medium or a long term.
That's interesting. That means you have a huge wish list and you are optimistic that the government has actually taken the start.
Absolutely.
Point taken. But then, Dr. K. Vijaya Laksmi, my point is very simple. I have got a little tired of hearing the same story of water harvesting water this, water that. India doesn't have water planners and India must get water planners. It's almost like saying India doesn't have journalists and we must import journalists. Now, my simple point is, when will we plan and will that plan be effective?
Okay. I think first of all, congratulations that finally we are waking up at the highest level of the governance. We are having at the highest level of the governance, we are planning to take the issue head on, and finally we are waking up to the crisis, which is not a good news. It should have been done much in advance when the crisis is not reached to the point of scarcity and alarming rates at an alarming rate. So finally what is required is, there is no dearth of planners in India. There is no dearth of scientific knowledge in India. It is a matter of coming together and area based planning, and involving the local people, and some of the NGOs. In my previous talk also I was talking about how NGOs have ensured the sustainable water management in a way that it meets the needs of both the agriculture, which is the highest consumer in the rural areas, and also in the urban spaces. People have shown the way of whatever water we have, that scientifically harvest it, conserve it and store it in a way that it is made available to us when there is a crisis, like during climate change. Around 3 to 4 months in the rural areas, we do not get water, a drop of water to drink, because the wells are dried and we have used the water for the when the water is available, excessively drawing that, not replenishing simultaneously. So, I think the need for area based planning, and both short term, medium term and long term planning is very important, involving the people. And I agree totally that we need to have multi-pronged approach, multidisciplinary, because water is something which is not only ensures water security for the people, but water means life, water means food security, water means ensuring that livelihood security is also happening. So, there are multiple benefits. The line departments like agricultural department, drinking water department, surface water storage department.
Dr. Vijaya Laksmi, let me come in. Dr. Vijaya Laksmi, let me come in and ask you, this is not the first time India has seen droughts. We have had droughts for the last 50, 60, 70 years. You are saying India is not short of planners. So, where did the problem lie, and why is it now that we have woken up and now we are saying, okay, let us get a great ministry in place and let us all work together? Why didn't they work earlier? Let us get a frank answer from you.
I think, I think what has missed in the last few decades was we became too greedy, and water sufficiency to extractive, we used to manage our water in a traditional way, in a way that people used to distribute the water in a equitable fashion for various needs, and all encompassing. And the traditional wisdom of to give you an example, Chandela, Bundela tanks, if you go and study in the drought prone area, they never faced, they had droughts, consecutive droughts, which is continuing and which is getting exacerbated because of climate change. But still I think those tanks were built in such a way that the people's needs were taken into consideration, and the networks have been created which have been encroached in the last 3 decades, encroached through land use disturbance. We have started building buildings, the flow has been arrested in a way that when the rain falls, it's not getting in recharge, it's not allowing the networks to recharge, and store some water for greater needs. That's where I think we failed miserably in controlling, preventing the land use changes that were happening, which were destroying the existing lakes, ponds, river networks, underground networks that were already existing. So, it is a high time that we preserve or conserve and take a good look of what is available now, what is remaining, and make sure that they are constructed traditional water harvesting structures, revamp them, so that at least we are waking up and ensure that in future there is no more encroachment happens in especially the lifelines of water.
I think Dr. Vijaya Laksmi, the fact that we are waking up is good news. But is that great news? There's a difference between good news and great news. I mean, we have just woken up and you are saying that the work has just begun. That means the Chandela Bundela tanks was a great example to follow, but India did not follow. Why?
I think the inflation of population over the past few decades.
Now, water has been blamed on population now.
Well, no, it's not being blamed on population, but it has not been able to keep up. So, when the Chandela Bundela Dam, for example, as a case in point, was constructed or built, its capacity was optimally perhaps planned to cater to a certain set of people in terms of numbers. Now, those numbers clearly got stretched and have gone over and beyond. Besides that, there have been other water management issues. So, like I said, simply making water available will not address water woes. Making water available and managing it well, treating it well. So, if I were to make a suggestion to the government, is one of the things they really need to do is not focus on 255 districts alone that are water stressed. It has to be a pan-India uniform approach where even where there is water, that water needs to be clearly managed better. The conservation needs to take place so that those areas that are water stressed feel some relaxation on the stress. Water has no boundaries, water has no geographies, water is seamless. Water tables are running through the country, north to south, east to west. It is all the same. So if it's conserved in Delhi, it's going to make more water available as you go to the suburbs of Delhi and beyond. So it's the same thing. There's no point in just focusing on conserving water in stressed areas. The de-stressed areas is where the conservation, if it takes place, it will create the balance. So there are several such approaches that really need to be taking place.
And who works on that? Which government?
So
NGOs?
No, it has to be. So primarily it has to start with the government and then it has to filter down. And percolate in terms of the execution and the implementation. So it's got to be a PPP approach, a very, very public-private partnership approach. It need not be confined to only projects. A PPP approach clearly can even work in terms of creating social awareness, in terms of creating, facilitating the tools to people to be able to conserve water. I mean, a lot of people are still using old oil jars and instead of having proper buckets. So even the water which is being stored is not really hygienic or not being done in a hygienic manner. Therefore, it is not making the trickle down effect of good water. Water is first good water, and good water leads to good health, wellness. So the government has to focus on the end objective, and then all that needs to be done intermittently will have to be done. I don't think
and you sincerely believe that the corporates will come into the government?
They will, and they should.
Will. See, have you seen examples of that?
So I'll tell you.
Is that a wish list again?
Since you mentioned corporates, the government previously made a CSR policy and the corporate social responsibility policy and encouraged people, those companies who were making profits over and above a certain number or had a turnover over X number and profits must spend 2% of their profits on CSR activities.
Okay.
I would think, and we believe today, that CSR, which is corporate social responsibility, is now corporate survival responsibility. Corporates need to step up and think and worry about the fact that profits or not, profits will come. If they intend to make profits, they've got to make water available to their own factory workers, to their own employees. that will also help them in retention, that will help them in keeping them happy, in keeping them, giving them a good work environment. Work environment is not confined to only an office space. It also extends to their house. If in the home there is happiness, it will percolate into the office and vice versa. So all of that needs to be thought about. So just like corporates were very, well utilized, or they contributed significantly in the last 5 years to building toilets. You mentioned the Swachh Bharat initiative. The Swachh Bharat, what is Swachh Bharat? It was basically intended to create wash facilities in India, water, sanitation and hygiene. Yes, in the last 5 years, it was only sanitation that got focused upon. But water was an integral part of it all along. And it remains an integral part. It's just that the focus is now coming in on that.
Okay, I think that's a fairly valid point. Before we go to the break, Vijaya Laksmi, let me come back to you and ask you, how difficult is this task? Is the ministry which has been formed fully equipped to handle a crisis of this nature?
I think if there is a willpower at the highest level, it is possible. And by forming the Jal Shakti as an intention of integrating several ministries, that itself is a first step in the right direction. But what we need right now is action plans which integrates planning processes in such a way that you use water as one unit. Don't differentiate in a given area, look at the groundwater availability, look at the surface water available and the rainfall that is happening, integrate all of those and distribute divide the water for various uses. That is where the planning has happened in the past. That Chandela example I gave only just to illustrate how wise those people were, and we have such intentions, but what is happening is hardware is done very well in terms of harvesting structures, large scale dams, or even in Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, many of those places they have constructed this big infrastructure. When there is water, water is stored, but if it gets misused, then the entire purpose is lost unless people are literate, people come together, and so participatory management processes with integrated approach of conjunctive use, both ground and surface water uses, and in a much more planned way. You understand which area needs what time is the scarcity coming, those 3 months of water scarce months, please preserve that water for essential needs and making sure that water crisis does not, and whenever there is excess water, do not extract too much without replenishing measures. Suppose you are having a water utility company drawing only water, but no responsibility for replenishment, and making sure that the water source sustainability has to be ensured.
Okay. Now the point is, I'll take one answer from you before I shift to Parag. This is like a huge wish list which you have said. A needs to meet B, B needs to meet C, C to D, D to E, F and all that. But the government today has said the Jal Shakti Abhiyan's 2 key points are recycle, reuse. Do you think Indians have a mindset to do that they will wash their clothes and use that water for watering their plants, or will they throw the water down the drain? Are we ready to do it?
You are asking me?
Yeah, I am asking you.
Yes, I think we are when it comes to crisis point. Yeah, when it comes to crisis point, when there is no water available, people have done it in Rajasthan. Even now, I think some parts of the Rajasthan, where there is no water, 1 liter of water may be used 7 times for different purposes. So instead of waiting for that crisis point to happen, water literacy, training, awareness should start very early when through education program. Even if you say it is a wish list, let's take this in a in a continuous fashion, where address the issue of the water crisis as an emergency basis, but at the same time do not lose sight of long term plans, long term education, long term capacity building of involving local communities and making sure that decentralized treatment systems, and then put a value to water when there is a basic minimum need is met, and beyond which the luxurious consumption has to be taxed. Then you will start seeing results. People then start valuing the water because there is money in it, and they will start reusing, recycling, and
That's a very valid
technologies
point.
used
Dr.
unnecessarily,
Vijaya
not
Laksmi,
using the reverse osmosis
Yeah.
systems. Yeah.
Yes. That's a very valid point. I'd like to thank you for your participation here and focus in the concluding part of the program with you, Parag. Great wish list. People need to wake up, smell coffee, and start work. I have a very small question to ask, which is, you have to convince Indians that water is cash. That will happen, or will that not happen?
I think that will happen. That
And
is
when will
already-
that happen?
That
After
is
40
already
years?
happening. I think even the Niti Aayog recognizes the fact that water needs to be made a chargeable commodity, albeit it needs to be at an affordable level. And unless that happens, you attach a value to the water, a price to the water, and automatically the water will start getting valued. As far as your previous point is concerned, where you said, will Indians wake up and realize that they should be really storing the water and
Yeah.
reusing it? I believe that the conscience keeper of every household today are the children. They are the ones who really go out and you know, they have the right to kind of check all the elders in the family if they are going outside a certain narrative. So I think even Swachh Bharat.
That's a
No.
new campaign. I mean,
It's
you
not
know,
a new campaign.
to use
it's about,
kids
it's about
and
no,
push
not
them
use
in.
kids, but you know,
Yeah,
basically
so-
create awareness at the school level, and children can take that message home, and they can keep that message at home and keep it in force, keep it in play. But coming back to the other point that you said, which is
the water, will Indians be able to do it and value water
the
as
value,
cash?
the value it will be only valued as cash when there is cash attached to water. So
And
when
how
there
do
is
you
money
propose to
attached
do
to
that?
water, it could be as
You increase the water meters and fees for
yes,
water?
flow meters have to be installed. The basic tariffs have to be there. Like Miss Vijaya, Dr. Vijaya Laksmi just said, that you know, those who are using water in an extravagant manner need to be paying multifold more for that water, so that they are able to curtail it. I think energy, electricity as a utility, as a commodity, started becoming available to more people because it became expensive. I mean, I know there are people who go around their house simply turning off the fans and lights if there is nobody in the room. And this kind
that
of
we all
awareness.
do, yeah.
So it will take time. It's not going to happen overnight. It is a process. Like I said to begin with, the journey has begun. It is a great start, and it's only going to get better from here. But it needs to be expedited, that process. We do not have 10 years to really let this become a way of life or become a culture in the Indian environment. Having said that, Indians are well traveled, they're well exposed, they understand what criticality water brings to their life or lends to their life, and I think they will stand up and deliver on this.
I think that's a very valid point. One last answer I could take from you. This great story about rainwater harvesting,
Right.
which I've been hearing since I was in school. Does that work really actually?
It works. It's not that it doesn't work. It's just that it has to be done in a more integrated fashion. So it cannot just be that you create a little storage system somewhere or a little reservoir you build somewhere using whatever form. It could be using, it could be a civil structure, it could be a rubber inflatable tube. There are so many ways nowadays, there are technologies, but doing something only in isolation will cater to a household or to a particular set of households.
So the community needs to get
The
involved.
community needs to get involved. You know, there has to be an overall, you know, so suppose there is rainwater harvesting created for let us say 50,000 liters. The moment that it starts to flow from the brim, what happens to that water? So there has got to be an integrated approach where every drop is not only captured, but it is also distributed or into a grid, so to speak. And that grid need not be a natural grid. That grid could be an artificial grid. And so there are so many ways. I mean, rainwater harvesting, I remember, forever it is being done in its own way. People stored water in buckets. People, they captured rainwater in buckets. They use the
tanks
water.
And all of
or
that.
I mean,
Okay.
it's a multi-pronged, multilateral, multi-skilled approach that is required. That is the order of the day.
Multi-pronged, multi-skilled, multilateral approach. Parag Agarwal, founder and CMD Janajal, Dr. K. Vijaya Laksmi, Vice President, Development Alternatives Group. Both of them working very closely with water, the water segment, and now I think both of them have an Herculean task on their hand, because India needs a new sun and a new moon and a new light if India needs to save its water. That's all we have here from the studio. Thank you very much. Don't go away. Wait for the next program.